If you're in the ABA field and not using the analysis of verbal behavior, you're really missing out on a lot. Dr. Mark Sunburg is one of the real pioneers in the field of verbal behavior, and today we're talking about him and his work. Hi, I'm Dr. Mary Barbera, autism mom, behavior analyst, and best-selling author. Each week, I bring you some of my ideas about turning autism or signs of autism around. So if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do that now. So today we are featuring a short excerpt from podcast 219 with Dr. Mark Sunburg, all about the VB-MAPP and his help with me in disseminating information. He wrote the foreword for my verbal behavior approach book. He's just has so much wisdom about the field and how we can help children with autism or toddlers showing signs much more than we're doing. So hope you like this excerpt.
Part of our issue is that so many kids with autism never make that leap. So we have profile after profile, decades and decades, where kids would get stuck in kind of mid-level 2 range on the VB-MAPP. That is, they would acquire man's tax, interverbals, echoics, imitative skills, and so on. But they had a rough time breaking through this generative ceiling where language takes care of themselves. Language really, in a sense, kids learn language on their own. In many ways. And what we're after is, how does that happen? And when it doesn't happen, what kind of things need to be done? And so if we look at what are we talking about when we say generative learning? And we're talking about there are particular repertoires that once they're acquired, they accelerate or enable other repertoires. That is, prior learning affects later learning. If you have a certain set of skills, you now can do some more advanced kind of things, often without reinforcement, without direct training. Take reading, for example. Once a child has acquired a reading repertoire, once they have that skill, they can acquire new information through reading. That is, they can learn stories, they can learn recipes, any kind of thing that's appropriate for their level, follow instructions and so on that are written. If that repertoire is established, then learning can occur, again, without any further adult training. Once I can read, I'm on my own. At a simpler, earlier level, if a child, and this is not necessarily generative, but it kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about. Once a child learns to crawl, for example, and it may take thousands of learning trials to get to the point of being able to crawl, once they can crawl, that repertoire opens the door to all kinds of new contingencies. And any parent knows once their child moves off that blanket, the world has changed, because now there's different things in that other room. I can now crawl to other reinforcers, pick up items and grab things. Those new contingencies shape behavior on their own. That is, the parent no longer needs to provide every SD, every reinforcement, every trial. Now, if you think again of a lot of our early work with children with autism, we're often teaching every single response in the child's repertoire early on. We're establishing those. We have history, data collection, and so on. We need to get the child to the point to where they begin to learn on their own. And so that as an overall goal is pretty critical. Don Baer's concept of behavioral cusps provides us with a direction in this area, and it also kind of organizes the subject matter a little bit. And the way he talks about a behavioral cusp is a behavior change that brings the child into contact with new contingencies, new reinforcers, new stimuli. And those contingencies in turn shape and develop new behaviors. And that's examples of reading, crawling. Once a child has learned to pincer grasp, now they can pick up things they couldn't do before. And that picking up things now shapes new behavior. So there's kind of, again, arrangements where an adult is not required anymore. Once I can walk, I now have access to new things that are going to shape behavior. Once you have an imitative repertoire, which is usually the hallmark of some of the generative learning stuff, once you have a generative imitative repertoire, I can now acquire new behavior with no formal training. I can do something correct on the first trial with no reinforcement. And that's sort of been the golden egg in many respects, where I look at it and say that that's where we want to head for children with autism, is to where new behaviors are acquired. But here's the trick, is that it only works if you have a certain set of prerequisite repertoires. That is, you have to have an echoic repertoire, an imitative repertoire, a tact repertoire, and so on, before you can move into an advanced stage. On the VB-MAPP, I've identified about 30 different generative learning repertoires. And those generative learning repertoires are often very difficult to achieve. And yet they're extremely powerful. I'll give you some examples of some level 1 things so you can kind of see how these fit in.
So are you, hold on 1 second. So you're saying all the milestones within the VB-MAPP you would consider generative learning repertoires that are important. Is that what you're saying?
No, not all. No,
Okay.
only about 30.
30. Okay. Okay.
30. And I'll eventually attach a PowerPoint maybe where people can look at that. And that's some of in fact, that the Penn State conference, National Autism Conference, has got a video archive of that where I lay out those 30 or 32 and talk about them.
Okay, we can definitely attach that then.
Okay, so at level 1, if we look at what skill, if we look at the definition that we're talking about is using Rosales Ruiz and Baer's definition of a behavioral cusp, where one set of skills enables or accelerates another set of skills, and it brings an individual into new contingencies with no reinforcement. That's kind of what we're operating at. On the VB-MAPP, there's 3 milestones that meet that criteria. One is manding. So if we look at our early intervention, we've known for a long time, certainly, that manding is really important. But it's also important because it's generative. So mand milestone 5 in level 1 says the child can mand for 10 items. Well, once that mand repertoire is at that level, once it's established, it takes off on its own in many ways. That is, if I can mand, I can now get access to something new that will shape new behavior. Also, the mand repertoire, as we know, is often one of the best ways to eliminate negative behavior and behavior problems. The work on functional communication training has empirically demonstrated that. The mand can replace problem behaviors. Well, there's a huge behavioral cusp in the sense that if you can eliminate or reduce a child's behavior problems simply through talking, through manding, that opens the door to new contingencies and new opportunities. And so that's a big one that we've always focused on that. Another one in the mand in the level 1 is babbling, automatic reinforcement. When speech sounds are reinforcing, when a child likes to hear their own voice, when they respond because speech sounds are conditioned reinforcers, that's also another powerful behavioral cusp that changes the way a child can learn. The third one in level 1 is in the social milestones. Milestone 5 is where a child will, in an unprompted manner, follow a peer or respond to a peer's SDs. And the significance of that is a peer has stimulus control over a child's behavior. And we look again at many children with autism, and that's one of our biggest issues, is that peers don't demonstrate stimulus control. A child doesn't attend to or emit behavior controlled by another child's behavior. If we can get that, and we should get that at level 1, that is, an 18-month-old child begins to imitate another child just in terms of say, following them around. So those kind of skills become more significant than the other 42 skills. Now, those other 42 skills are certainly important, but what we're after is those particular skills. Now, when you get into level 2, all those generative repertoires are all along the top of number 10, the top of the second level. All the number 10 milestones are all generative milestones. Those are all generally skills that once they're acquired are going to allow the child to learn new skills. For example, milestones in the tact repertoire, in the listener repertoire. If we look at both milestones 9 and 10 on the tact and the listener, milestones 9 are once a child can tact noun-verb combinations and receptively respond to noun-verb combinations, that's indicative of what we'd often talk about as recombinative generalization. That is, I can teach a set of verbs and I can throw in any noun, and you now can give me a noun-verb response on the very first trial. Or I can do the opposite. I can teach the noun and put it into a new verb. Well, that's Howard Goldstein's work, and that's one of the many, many different types of generative learning. So that milestone, again, is one that it's a little harder to achieve for a child than other milestones. But once you got it, if I can get the child to the point to where they can put in a new noun on any verb, boom, they're off with that repertoire. I'll pause there to see if you want to.
Yeah, no, I think this is great. And I think part of the problem I see parents and professionals struggling with is, the overuse of teaching carrier phrases, the overuse of teaching rote responding, and not having milestones in the level 1 area, milestones in level 2 up to 9 fixed. So it's like people are building a base on building on top of a very unstable base and making weird language. And so, like, as you're talking, I'm like, that's why my emphasis is so much on getting to the kids when they're first showing signs of autism, when they're first diagnosed, and trying not to mess up their language or teach too high, which is always happening, and trying to let things use multiple control, let kids build language. If you like that little video blog excerpt from podcast 219, you may want to listen to the whole thing. Check the description below. And for more information about how you can join our online course and community, attend a free workshop to learn more. If you like this video, I'd love a thumbs up, a comment, or share this video with others who might benefit. And I'll see you here next time.